This video is going to cover the topic of subtracting integers with the number line model. Be sure the date and topic are at the top of your page. Your essential question, which needs to be on your paper, is how do we subtract integers using the number line model? And we've talked a little bit about subtracting integers, and we've used the chip model in which we had to add 0 pairs, but now we're going to look at the number line model. Let's start with the basics. Let's say I want to model 7 minus 3 on the number line. What would that look like? Well, as we know from before, I would likely start here at 0 and go to my first integer, which is a positive 7. So I would go to the right 7, I'd stop there, and then since I'm subtracting, I would take away or move to the left 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3. And I would land at 4, so my answer would be 4. And there are a couple things in there that you should have heard me say. One was that I mentioned taking away, and the other one was that we assumed, probably all of us, that subtracting and taking away would go to the left, right? It seems straightforward. And if I wanted to model 4 minus 7, right, once again, I would start at 0. I would go to my positive 4 since that's my first integer. And then since I'm subtracting, right, I would take away, I would move to the left 7 spaces. So starting here, I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, getting me back to 0, 5, 6, 7. I would land right there. Let me just put a little arrow to say which way I'm going here. And then that would be a negative 3. Right? So that would be me subtracting on a number line, right? That is probably natural and intuitive for you. But now let's try the next step. In this example, we have 5 minus a negative 4, right? So right off the bat, I can see that what I'm doing that is different here is that I'm talking about a negative number, right? I have a negative integer. But it starts off the same, right? So from 0, I see that I'm going to positive 5 to begin, right? So this is me heading to the right, a positive 5. But then I have to subtract a negative 4. And before I decide what to do, I want to remind us that when we were subtracting a positive, we moved left, right, along the number line. So that means if I want to subtract a negative, if I want to subtract the opposite, I need to go in the opposite direction. Which means that if I want to subtract a negative, I'm actually going to move to the right. So I'm at my 5, and I want to subtract a negative 4. That means I'm going to move to the right, here I am, to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually, it looks like I need to extend my number line a minute here. There we go. So my answer is a positive 9. Right? That might seem weird, right? A 5 minus a negative 4 gets us a positive 9. But it makes sense, right? If I have $5, and I also know that I have this debt of $4 that I was planning to pay off, and I had this $4 waiting to spend to give back to whoever lent me that money, if I don't have to pay that debt anymore, if I take it away, I now have a net worth of $9. Let's try another. Okay, so here we have a negative 5 minus a negative 2. As always, right, I'm starting here at 0, and my first integer is a negative 5, so I'm actually going to go to the left to get to my negative 5, right? I had to go left to start to show that I was going to negative 5. From there, I'm subtracting, but I'm subtracting a negative, so I need to do the opposite. So instead of going to the left more, I'm going to go to the right, and I'm going to go to the right 2 units. So 1, 2 until I stop right here, which means negative 5 minus a negative 2 is a negative 3. And sometimes our number lines are written vertically, right? We see them horizontally the most in our class, but sometimes we'll see them vertically. So we're just going to think about what this could look like. And you're going to hear me talking about up and down instead of left and right, right? So I'm going to start here with my negative 3. So I'm going to go down to negative 3. That's my first stop. And then I'm subtracting a negative 5. So if I were subtracting normally, I think I would probably continue going down the number line. But since I need to do the opposite, I need to go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and stop there. So my answer is a positive 2. This, of course, might seem counterintuitive, right, to go in the opposite direction, but it makes sense. If we're subtracting the opposite of a positive, we need to go in the opposite direction. So what we need to remember is this. If we are subtracting just a regular positive integer, then that would tell us to move left on the number line or down, depending on how our number line is arranged. And if we are subtracting a negative, that tells us that on our number line model, we need to move to the right or up if our number line is set up that way. Right? So those are the two things that we need to remember the most. And remember, the essential question for this video was how to subtract integers using the number line model. At some point, you might decide that the chip model is better for you, or you might decide that the algorithm, once we figure out what that is, might work best for you. But it's a good idea to have this as a visual that even if you're not drawing it, you can kind of see in your head as you're thinking about where you're going as you're subtracting integers.